Welcome once again to the Ahern video podcast. Today I want to talk a little bit about the sales process. I'm constantly receiving telephone calls from potential sellers saying, I really need to get out of the business. I want to ensure I want to preserve some liquidity for my family. I'm afraid that one day I'm going to wake up and one claim is going to wipe me out of business, and the list goes on. And the first thing I talk about is, well, what are your expectations? And they say, what do you mean? And he says, you mean price-wise? I said, no. What are your expectations if you do sell your business? I've written numerous articles on letting go. What precipitated a lot of these telephone calls is I wrote an article in our newsletter called The Sales Process. And I walk sellers through what they can and cannot do. But the first process is being prepared to let go. The reality of the situation is you cannot turn off the switch, walk out the door, and live happily ever after. It is not going to happen. I tell the story about a well-known trucking executive that took a company public, and today he works with me. He doesn't need the money. He lasted 3 weeks. He needed the purpose. Now he's got other businesses, and it was the best decision of his life at the time. But you always have to have a purpose. You cannot go play golf every day, go on a cruise around the world all the time, and be mentally challenged. Most of us cannot. Maybe some can. The second thing is, in the reality situation, unless you just have a gazillion dollars, we're living longer. And in order to stay young, even though you may age chronologically, you need to keep your mind active. So the first thing is, you have to have something else to do. Then if you've gone through that process and you're ready to go, if you are a profitable business, and you have been a profitable business, are they going to let you walk out the door tomorrow? No. Depending on the size of the revenue, we'll make a determination how long you may have to stay. And assuming that is okay, then it is, what is the business actually worth? Not what an attorney tells you, not what an accountant tells you, but someone that's been involved in lots of transactions. Because you can look at the public sector, but the public sector really does not define what companies historically sell for. Additionally, if a public company makes an announcement they bought a company for XYZ, there may be a lot of property involved or something else that's not disclosed, and so it looks like they overpaid for the business, but 9 out of 10 times strategic buyers never overpay for a business. So you've got 3 processes to go through. Your first process is you have to be ready to let go. Your second process is you have to have something else to do. And the third process is you have to be priced properly. Assuming you get through those 3 things, you have to have someone that's going to be on your team. Someone that can give you advice, and someone that can tell you whether someone is a legitimate buyer or not a legitimate buyer. You as a seller have the right to ask for specific things. Normally, once you've had a conversation, a non-disclosure is signed, and then they start moving the process along with the document request. And you're required to send some financial information and some statistical data. And you have to be careful what statistical data you send and when to release it. And that's what someone that's experienced in the industry will tell you what to do. But more importantly than that, if it's not a company that's well known, you have to make sure that they have the financial ability to do your deal. Now you'll ask them and they say yes, but if it's a $15 million company trying to buy a $30 million company, you need to see a letter of credit from the bank, or you need to see their tax returns and their P&L statements to make sure that they have the ability to go forward. 9 out of 10 times sellers give people that are buyers that are, quote, in the market, all the information they want, and they don't even know if they're qualified. So the first rule of thumb after you've gone through the 3 processes is make sure that the buyer's qualified. If you use somebody who's competent, then they're going to be able to qualify that buyer, and they're going to be able to give you the direction on what you should and should let go. Depending on your size, depends on how quickly the process is going to close. If you're under $30 million, once you agree to $30 million and under, once you agree, you shouldn't take more than 45 to 60 days to close your transaction. We just were involved in a transaction that was a little over $50 million. It took about 90 days. As part of the process, at some point in time, you're going to need an attorney that is skilled in transportation transactions. Don't use your general guy that doesn't know anything about trucking. because he's going to run up the meter. The other thing you have to do is know how to qualify the attorney. They're going to tell you they charge so much an hour. And in a lot of cases, you're going to want to talk to 2 or 3 attorneys. When people come to us, we'll give them a referral to 2 or 3 attorneys, say check them out, but ask them for a maximum price, talk to them, feel them out, and then go who you feel comfortable with. That's part of the process. Too many times we rely on our friends that don't have the experience. And the reason I say that is, look, if you need open heart surgery, are you going to go to your friend Clem that's the plumber? Of course not. Clem may be able to give you a cheaper price, but is Clem going to save your life? When you're talking about selling your retirement account, which for most of us our businesses are, you want to make sure that you're going to cross the finish line. Many times a seller will call me and he or she will say, well, look, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to go. Well, let's go out there and do a 3-day review. Let's look at your operations, your sales, your maintenance department, and let's find out where some of the things have to be fixed so that when a buyer comes in, it's not going to be a problem. Well, I don't want to go through all that expense. Well, what you're saying is you don't want to make any investment in your company to hit to secure your financial future. When I hear comments like that, I take 2 steps back. You know, if you're not feeling well, you go to the hospital and you want to make sure you've had a complete body scan so there's nothing creeps up that's going to change your life. Well, the same in a business. You want to cross the finish line? Recently, somebody came to me and they said, this is the way our business is structured. And I said, you need to change the structure. These are the reasons why. I don't feel comfortable with the way your structure is. Here's somebody to call, fix it. And they did fix it. Then they called me back and said, okay, now we think we'd like to sell the business. I said, well, I'd like to go in and look at the business to make sure that everything you're telling me is true. Well, we don't want you to do that. I said, well, then I don't want to work with you. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you deal with a strategic buyer, there's certain things they look for. They look for honesty, they look for integrity, and they look to be able to take the business and leverage it. They look at your people. Since there were some problems in the business, I want to make sure that they're rectified. I want to make sure that they're cleared, and I want to make sure there's no exposure going forward. They didn't want to do that, so I didn't feel comfortable in the situation, and they said, well, you could make a lot of money if you sell the business. And I said, it's not worth my reputation. So the point I'm trying to make is get a team together. Get someone you feel comfortable with. Am I selling our services? Absolutely not. We are not for everybody. First of all, we're not a business broker. We don't do contract negotiations. We don't do due diligence. But we have very deep relationships. I move a process along. I don't get in the way. And we let you interact with our clients. Someone will say, well, are they going to buy this or that? Historically, no, but that's between you two. You, as a seller, know what you have to sell. A buyer knows what they want. To me, it doesn't make any sense to put someone in the middle and try and broker a deal, because we're talking about your financial security. And in most strategic sales, you're going to have to stay, so you've got to make for a while, so you're going to have to make sure these are the people that you can identify with. So in closing, if you take all of the things we've talked about today and you understand the sales process, if you put a team together and you go through the process of actually making sure that there's nothing that could create the deal from not crossing the finish line, and you are mentally prepared to let go and the company is priced properly, then you're ready to start the sales process. Until next time, thank you for attending the podcast.